Are you telling me it was a week for the differentials? Welcome to A Different Corner, a fantasy football podcast. I'm Manish Verma. I'm joined, as always, to grumble game week to game week with me is my friend of how many decades? I don't even know now, can't count because we're both reaching 40 soon. Dr. Luman Ali. Luman, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. And because I've got a memory of an elephant, I can tell you that it's 28 years,
Holy moly. 28-year
which is
friendship.
which is longer than most of our listeners have been alive. So
Whenever we talk about the start of our friendship 28 years ago, it just reminds me of how we were introduced to each other. It was in our science class, and this is why the George Michael themed podcast even exists, is because we were in science. I'd never met you before, never heard of you. I was sat next to a friend of mine who was in the same form as me. All of a sudden, the teacher says, right, get your equipment. We're going to start this experiment. Then out of nowhere, this young man drags his stool over across the room, places it right next to me and my other friend, slaps his hands together, rubs them, says, right, lads, what are we doing? And that's how you introduce yourself to me, Lumen.
imposing back then, imposing now, always imposing.
But what a moment. And if it wasn't for that moment, we wouldn't have this fantasy football George Michael themed podcast. And Lumen, where do you want to start? Where do you want to start with game week 8?
At the end of Saturday's fixtures, and you've got to bear in mind there was 2, 4, 7 fixtures played on Saturday.
Yeah.
The average point at the end of Saturday was like 15 points. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And then you think, okay, the average points are going to go up because Haaland on Sunday is going to go off on a tear. And because he's owned by 73% of teams, that's going to push the average points up.
Yeah.
No, he blanks. And as we speak, with one game left, it's 32 points. The majority of teams have done badly. The teams that have done well haven't done. It wouldn't be well in a normal game week, but in terms of proportion, if you're getting 40 points or above, that's a good week.
That is a good week, yeah.
So yeah, it's been a crazy week. And what I like to do is I always like to see the team of the week, right? And if you see on the team of the week, the majority of players have got low ownership. That means everyone's had a bad game week. Even in those weeks where the popular players don't make the team of the week, let me give you an example. Let's just say Dwight McNeil makes the team of the week and he's got 12 points. And Brian Mbeumo doesn't, but Mbeumo's got 8 points. That's something.
Yeah.
Even that didn't happen. Let's quickly go through this. Cameron Archer made team of the week, 2.1% ownership. Yves Bissouma, team of the week, 0.4%. Justin Cliver, 0.3%. Son, 5.6%.
Wow.
Curtis Jones, 0.1%.
Gosh.
John Stones, 1.8%. Marco Senesi, 0.6%. Josko Gvardiol, relatively high, 24.1%. Michael Keane, 7.2%. Bart Verbruggen, 1.8%. So apart from Gvardiol and Mo Salah, who's on 38%, the rest of them were like maximum ownership of 7%.
Are you telling me it was a week for the differentials?
It wasn't. I wouldn't even say it was a week for the differentials because those players are such low ownership, right? Yes, if you had the odd one, like if you had Keane, like a lot of people do because he's a cheap defender, yeah, it bumps you up a little bit. But this was a week where you can console yourself in the fact that everyone did badly. How did you do?
So the big thing for me, Lumen, I messaged you a simple GIF of someone pressing the red button after weeks, maybe months of talking about doing my wild card. I finally did it. And I'm reflecting on it. I should be reflecting on it a bit like I'm kicking myself, because actually the team that I had Jackson, who I never thought would have scored against Liverpool. Ollie Watkins has always, could score, and he did score this weekend. Havertz blanked. But basically, I did huge upheaval to my midfield and front line, and my defense to a degree as well. But I basically had this superb on paper front three just to shoehorn Erling Haaland in. Havertz, Jackson, and Ollie Watkins, and I've swapped that out for Haaland, Chris Wood, and Johan Wissa, which I just think is I just like that move, because no one's seen Johan Wissa for like a month or so, and he's under 6 million, and I kind of just like that move, because I do think they've missed him. And it was just to get Erling Haaland in. I also wanted to get Cole Palmer in my midfield. But it all meant the big thing that I really did was I had to get rid of Mo Salah. I tried ways of getting him in, and there was a way, but it was really detrimental to a couple of the key positions. And shall I tell you something, Luman? I was swayed massively by you. You watch Liverpool week in, week out. I do not. And you were saying about he's not quite been the same. His touch, his pass, his final ball. And I was like, it's Mo Salah, but Luman knows ball. I have to go with this. And on top of that, Man City have Wolves and Southampton. And I was like, I can't miss out on these Haaland points again. That was my biggest driver of my wild card. I do not want to miss out on those points again. Of course, lo and behold, Mo Salah scores a goal and gets an assist. If you've captained him, you're hopefully healthy this weekend. If you went for Haaland on a 3-game blank week now, we're talking about 3 games. Nothing from Erling Haaland at 15.4 million. I'm now in that camp. So it hurts a little bit, but I ended up on 27. Who would have thought that an Everton defender would have saved my game week? Michael Keane I had in. He's at 4.1. It's actually his second goal of the season. I'm so grateful that it came this weekend. I had him for a goal and a clean sheet against Ipswich, and he's basically saved me. I still have Ola Aina at Forest and Chris Wood to play against Crystal Palace this evening. But generally, I blanked. I blanked everywhere else. Saka also did nothing for me. I've got coming off the bench Joachim Anderson, who's actually going to lose me points because he got sent off. I should be kicking myself, but I know now, thinking if I went into this game week with no Erling Haaland, and especially maybe next game week with no Erling Haaland, I would be really fretting.
He's going to go off on a tear next week because he hasn't scored a few games, and Southampton are just stupid.
I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing.
They're so committed to this possession-based football, and they got punished heavily against Leicester City. Bearing in mind, they were up 2-0, but against Man City, it's gonna be carnage.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if it's a record score.
Well, maybe some triple captainers even on a single game week. There will be, But that was my thinking. In hindsight, could I have saved it? Obviously, I could have saved it for one game week more. I would have probably done a little bit better than the 27. I probably would have got to around 40-point mark, roughly about the 40-point mark with Salah as captain. So I would have done better. But Michael Keane has just saved me. Michael Keane has saved me massively. And one thing I probably could have done was actually used a different chip. I could have just saved it and used the free hit. That's what I probably could have done. But I'm looking at my team and I think I prefer it. My approach, Lumen, I messaged you saying, remind me to use my Batman and Robin analogy. And the Batman and Robin analogy is this. Every team has the Batman, FPL wise. And if you can't get Batman, can you get Robin, which is your second guy? And I feel like all across my squad, I've tried to do that. So I've got Raya in goal. He's the Batman of Arsenal's goal, but actually, he's probably one of the best keepers in the league. We should talk about no clean sheets in four for Arsenal, however. So there's question marks there. Ola Aina, is he the Batman of the Nottingham Forest defence? Possibly. He's, well owned. Michael Keane is not the Batman of Everton's defence, but he is scoring points, so I'll take that. Everton are on a good run. Kanate, I don't think is Batman, but I think he's the Robin. I think Trent is your Batman. He's probably Robin. Diego Jota is not Batman, and I think is Robin, but I'm not sure now because he also came off. I'm not sure how significant his injury is. I got Brennan Johnson, who actually was acting like Batman until Son went off. Adama Traore is not the Batman of Fulham, but he's definitely Robin. And I've seen Fulham a few times this season, and I just like him. I really like him at 5.1 million, so I'm sticking with him. Cole Palmer is the Batman. Bukayo Saka is the Batman. Erling Haaland is Batman. Chris Wood is probably Batman at Nottingham Forest. And then on my bench, I got Joachim Anderson, out Nuri, who's not. I've got just Robins, and Wissa. Actually, he's probably, when he get back to fitness, the close Robin to Mbuemo's Batman. So that was my Batman and Robin sort of thinking. If you can't get to Batman, can you get to Robin? And I feel like the big Batman I switched out was Mo Salah to try to get an Erling Haaland. This week it bit me in the bum. Next week, that I thought Erling Haaland would go off, and we should talk about this. I watched parts of that game yesterday. I didn't realize how defenses who are clued up, maybe Southampton aren't this,
Oh, they're not.
are just defending him. They're just the way Wolves defenders. I was watching off the ball. I wasn't even watching the ball. I was just watching Erling Haaland. They were battering him between two. They were buffering him. If one isn't just on him, constantly touching him, pushing him, the other one is. It's such an effective way of defending him. And if you're Wolves, of course you're going to do that. And I just thought, oh, this is the treatment Erling Haaland is getting now because he's such a threat. He didn't have a sniff from what I could see. Didn't have a sniff. And credit to Wolves. Of course, Man City went on to win anyway, but he didn't have any part to play in that game. Maybe it's a different story next week against Southampton. But that was my Batman and Robin kind of approach to my wild card. How about you, Luman? You didn't have Haaland. He's laughing. He's laughing like the Joker. We've had all these Batman and Robin analogies, and here's the Joker laughing at the rest of us. Go on, Luman. Tell us what you did.
Going into this week, I didn't do any transfers. So far, I've got 43 points against the average of 32. I'm going to end up on 50 points because Saka didn't play and Raul Jimenez got me 7 points.
Oh my gosh, Raul Jimenez, the return machine.
I'm also kicking myself for my stupidity because I was thinking between Harwood Bellis and Mikalenko for defense. I went with Harwood Bellis because Mikalenko didn't play the previous game, and sure enough, Mikalenko plays in the game. So I could have ended up on 57 points.
Wow, on an average of 32 would have been. I mean, 43 you've got, so it's not you're no mug here.
So here's what happened with me and Mo Salah, because it's not a case of I'm hypocritical, but bad mouthing him and then having him in my team as well. No, he didn't play great in the last run of fixtures, and Liverpool are not great after an international break. It was more of a trial than anything else. It was a trial to say, okay, if he doesn't do it, I'm going to get Haaland in, and he did it. And even though Haaland is going to tear it up next week, it's a certainty. It's a guarantee he'll turn it because Southampton are so bad. The balance of my team, I'm happy with at the moment. If I'm going to give one tip to everybody, it's this. Do not make decisions based on emotion. Whether those decisions come from like feelings of love, like you really love a certain player, like you're a Man United fan and Bruno is awful for fantasy football. And conversely, do not make decisions when you're angry and upset. That's one of the reasons why I've improved the last few years as a fantasy football player. What you don't want to be is Destiny's Child and let emotions take you over. You don't want it to be It's just emotions taking me over.
With that in mind, you're a Liverpool fan, and you by all accounts love Mo Salah. I'm not a Liverpool fan, and I love Mo Salah. Right? I just think he's just been superb since he's been here. And I don't think you're hypocritical or anything. And I definitely got the sense from you that you were waiting and seeing. What you saw from Mo Salah yesterday, does it say to you, oh, that was just a little performance blip before the international break, and he's going to keep going? And the second part of that question is, are you going to use your free hit for next week? Because you cannot not have Erling Haaland in, but the only way you could squeeze him in is potentially sacrificing Mo Salah away to Arsenal. Like, how are you feeling about Mo Salah after yesterday, and what will you do? Does he pose a problem for you now because he played so well yesterday?
I'm feeling good about Mo Salah, no doubt. But I'm definitely not going to be playing my free hit. When you don't have Haaland in your team, you just have to prepare yourself for those weeks when other people are going to have him, they're going to captain him and do well. But in those weeks, let's just say someone's got Haaland and they've captained him and they've got a 70-point week. You've got to have a 55, 60-point week. And that's what's been happening to me so far. I mean, it's no gimme. Bournemouth are a fantastic team, right? In terms of how they're doing in light of their resources. But Watkins at home to Bournemouth, I'm wanting points from there, right? And
Yeah.
if Haaland scores 17, which is a hat trick and bonus points, maximum bonus points, if Watkins gets me 8, I'm happy. It's well known between us that I'm a bit of a hoarder, and the last 2 years when I've done well in fantasy football, I've gone into game week 30 and I've had all my chips. I've had all my chips. Last year, I played 4 chips in the last 5 weeks.
And did
So,
it give you that boost that you
oh
needed
yeah,
at
yeah,
the
yeah.
end?
Let's not talk about Mateta, but yeah, it. Otherwise,
Mateta
it
did.
did. Otherwise, it did. Yes, it did.
Yeah.
I'm happy with my team at the moment. I'm happy
Happy
with
with the
my
team.
team.
We've still got a game this evening,
Oh
and I've
God.
got interest in it. Forest versus Crystal Palace. Palace have not been good this season. Forest have been good this season and are playing at home. However, this is fantasy football, and you just never know. But that brings us to game week 8, historically low, and we would say that is largely down to a 3/4 of FPL players have Erling Haaland in.
I think this is also a time where we look at the big teams always and seeing what they're doing. But I think it's a time to delve a bit deeper into some of the other teams that are doing well, right?
Mm.
And Everton had a bad start to the year. Four losses on the bounce. But in the last 4 games, it's been draw, win. And in the last 2 games, a couple of clean sheets.
They've had a good few, four games, no defeats. In that, they have got 2 clean sheets. So maybe an Everton defender. We talked about Michael Keane is only 4.1.
Yeah.
Jordan Pickford is down to 4.8 in goal.
And
Dwight McNeil, we spoke about him. He got another assist this weekend. I don't fancy Calvert Lewin at all, but there is another player. He's a striker. I'd never heard of him, and he's an excellent player. How do you even say his name? Iliman Ndiaye?
yeah,
Ndiaye?
India.
I don't know how to say it. He's really good on the eye, but also fantasy football wise, he's scored only 2 goals this season. But in this run now, he has started to play more than, well, he started with just 30 minutes and then 80 minutes. And in the winning run that they've been on, or the non-losing run, he's been completing 80 plus, and he's a good player.
I forgot to mention also the reason why we're talking about Everton is because in the next 6 weeks, 5 of their fixtures, I've got 2 on the FDR, and the other one is away to Man United with 3. So they're playing
Mm.
home against Fulham, away to Southampton, away against West Ham, who aren't great at the moment, Brentford at home, Man United away, and Wolves at home.
And Everton, who have historically just been down there recent years, but never go down. Um, there are certainly worse teams than them. They didn't start well, but they have been good. And maybe Sean Dyche is finally showing that form, which he did at the set. We
Yeah.
keep talking about it. They were second to Arsenal with their defense, how tight they were. And with those fixtures coming up, yeah, maybe it is time to get in those Everton assets. And there's some very cheap ones there,
Yeah.
very cheap ones
Yeah.
there. So yeah, Everton.
Another team I want to talk about is Wolves.
Mm.
Wolves have had, I can't think of a team that has had a more brutal start to the season than them in terms of fixtures. In
Mm.
8 games, they lost 7 games and they've drawn one, right? But their games have been Arsenal away, Chelsea at home, Forest away, Newcastle at home, Villa away, Liverpool home, Brentford away, Man City at home. Yikes. That's
Arguably, are they all, in fact, apart from Brentford, potentially, they might all be top half of the table teams. So let's see. Okay, so both Forest and Brentford are bottom half of the table teams, but 12th and 13th. Everyone else they've played. It's really, you're right. It's been really, really difficult run
yeah.
for Wolves. And
Now,
yeah.
now, in some of those games they've been unlucky, right? But overall, that run of fixtures, forget hard run of games. It's Squid Games. You know, if you know, then you know. But the reason I'm mentioning them is between now and 29th of December, all their fixtures are either green or 3 of them are grey.
Right. They are basically playing teams who are down there with them. And if they are going to survive this league, which they are capable of, definitely with the players they have, you would expect them to be winning the next few
Well, I'm
fixtures,
talking
right?
about Wolves because of this run of fixtures now, but I want to know your thoughts because you love so many of their players. I
Yeah,
know you've got Ait Nouri, and would you get anyone else in at the moment?
every time I watch Cunha, I'm just so impressed with him. I just like him. You know what? If Arsenal were to sign a player like Cunha, he would be backup. But gosh, he is a superb player in a better team, which he probably deserves to be playing in. No disrespect, Wolves. He would be killing it. I imagine come the summer there will be some those sorts of that Spurs Newcastle sort of team will be after him because he's that good. I think.
So,
Strand Larson, another goal for Strand Larson. That's 3 goals and an assist. He is their focal point. I
yeah,
would definitely be considering him at 5.5 million. Like, that's really good value.
in the answer to the question, couldn't you do it for Arsenal? We say yes.
Yes. Couldn't you do it for Arsenal? Yes. Couldn't you do it against Brighton away? That's a tricky one because that's their next fixture. But after that, Palace at home, for Southampton at home, they need to be winning them games. And Cunha is going to be at the focal point of that very much. He's got to be in your thoughts. But Everton, Wolves have got to show, get a few more results. They were unlucky yesterday, right? They were unlucky. They defended heartily. They defended well. They got that goal. Okay, take a point against Man City, and what happened happened. But yeah, Wolves, unfortunate. And yeah, next few fixtures, I would be looking at them.
Cool.
What about you? Would you be looking at Wolves?
I am looking definitely at Wolves. I'm looking at Ait Nouri. I'm looking at those strikers, like you said. My team at the moment, as much as I like it in many ways, so for example, this weekend, 10 out of my 11 players are playing at home, right?
Mm.
But then you look at those fixtures. Palmer's at home to Newcastle. Saka's at home to Liverpool. Salah's away to Arsenal. Havertz is at home to Liverpool. They're not kind fixtures.
Cole Palmer at home to Newcastle looks icky, but Newcastle lost at home to Brighton this weekend, and Cole Palmer went away to Anfield. Okay, I didn't watch the whole game, but Cole Palmer gets a chance a game, and he hit one as like actually Cole Palmer standards. He should probably be hitting the target. It was a really good effort. And at home to Newcastle, I think as differential captains, that might be one. If you haven't got Haaland in, that might be one people are thinking of.
You know what my issue is against this blooming Newcastle team? They're horrible to play against. Forget the results. In game week 1, they kept a clean sheet. Game week 2 conceded 1 goal. Game week 3 conceded 1 goal. Game week 4 conceded 1 goal. Game week 5 was the only bad game they've had defensively, conceded 3. Game week 6 conceded 1 goal. 7, they kept a clean sheet. And game week 8, only 1 goal. So they might be having up and down results, but they don't concede more than a goal a game. There's only been one game this season where they've conceded more than 1 goal.
They did get undone, out-muscled, barged through. He did the what Arsenal fans had dubbed the Thursday Night Pele by Danny Welbeck. So famously in 2018 or something like that, he scored, I think, a hat-trick for us on a Thursday night in the Europa, and he was dubbed the Thursday Night Pele. Welbeck scores again. What a season he's having, by the way, and fair play to him. And actually, if they're playing home to Wolves, that might be one that people are looking at. Yeah, sorry.
Welbeck is plenty of people's man, but I'm sure you've got some questions for me on who my man is.
Who is your man? This is the George Michael theme podcast. His famous song, I'm Your Man, of course. And in this part of the show, Luman, I want to put to you 2 players. And I want you to tell me who's your man out of the 2. Who would you rather have? The tricky one this time is they are all under £6 million. They might not even be players we've ever really spoken about so much. So I want, or they have, and they've been paired with someone we've never spoken about. So who's your man under 6 million edition? Okay, here we go. Onana versus Raya.
Onana.
Wow. No clean sheets in 4 for Arsenal, Luman. A lot. And you know what? This is really a double stinger because at the start of these last 4, there was a lot of players doubling in on Arsenal defense. You went emotional on Raya. I mean, I'm an Arsenal fan. I'm disappointed again. This is a big defeat for us after, of course, Man City win, Liverpool win. So it's a double stinger for me. But no clean sheets in 4 for that famously tough.
And the run of fixtures coming up.
Yep. So Onana for you. And let's go on to the next one, which was Dwight McNeil. We've just spoken about Everton. Rodgers at Aston Villa. Another assist for each. Who would you rather have? Who's your man?
Oh, that's a tough one. Yikes. I would say Dwight McNeil because he's more of a attacking focal point than Morgan Rodgers is. Morgan Rodgers is important, but not as important as Dwight McNeil. And if any smart people say, "Oh, why didn't you get Dwight McNeil in?" It's because he cost more money and I couldn't afford him.
Fine. Next one. Who's your man? Ethan Pinnock, who I've got love for because he scored me a massive haul last season, who's got 2 goals in 2 consecutive games versus Christian Romero.
Oh God. But I don't fancy either of them really because the both team concede so many goals. I would have to be swayed maybe by Ethan because of his threat at corners. But do you feel like a Pinnock for not having him in your team?
Yeah, I do. I didn't realize how big a deal Ethan Pinnock is to Brentford fans. I think he's like a big, firstly, away from, if you're not in the team, if you don't follow a team, you don't really, these are just guys, right? But actually for Brentford fans, I think he's their heart and soul. Yeah, I like Ethan Pinnock a lot. And this might sway you. Brentford have got Ipswich at home next. Can he score 3 consecutive game weeks? I don't know. Okay, so that's that one. Next one. This is a real fascinating one because I'm going to share a stat with you in a second. I don't even know what his first name is, but Leicester City's Buonate versus Much talked about this season, Bournemouth's Semenyo.
Ooh, Semenyo, because Buonanotte is a big player, but in terms of fantasy wise, in real life, it's different. But in terms of fantasy, Semenyo gets you the points.
So this might surprise you. Semenyo, 3 goals and 1 assist this season. Buonanotte, £5 million, remember, or £5.5 million, 3 goals and 2 assists this season.
Ooh.
Buonanotte, we cannot sleep on this guy. Firstly, I've watched a few highlights of Leicester. My Leicester supporting friends rate him highly. And you know what? The guy's doing it. His last 3, 4, 11, and 6. He has also scored 6 and 5 earlier in the season. Leicester are going to be struggling this season. But if they get points, he is 5 million. He's £5 million. He is a very good pick.
Maybe
Of
before bringing Morgan Rogers in, I should have seen that Leicester are playing Forest at home and Ipswich away next.
maybe. I think there's definitely a player there for fantasy football managers. Right, the final one. Who's your man? Raul Jimenez versus Chris Wood.
Chris Wood, and I think that's going to be proven tonight when he scores a hat trick.
I hope so, Luman. I need these points, man. Chris Wood, I did go big on Chris Wood. But, I think Raul Jimenez might be back.
He's done well so far, but
You're saying that so coyly, Luman, as a Raul Jimenez owner. But when are you going to actually start him?
soon, hopefully. Chris Wood is a threat, man.
I hope so. I need him to go off this week, tonight. I need him to go off. And that's Who's Your Man? Some, I think, real surprising ones in there. Buonanotte, I think, is a really interesting one. I got a lot of love for Ethan Pinnock as well there. But yeah, that's I'm Your Man. And that takes us to game week 9, Luman. Yeah, we'll be there. We will be there. I'll speak to you soon.